Well, it's Ampeg day here. I'm going to try to get almost done with this SVT, and then I'm going to go to that Gemini. I got the new Tremolo roach for that in the mail, thanks to my buddy Andy. So on this SVT, it's been a matter of revealing layers of problems. I got all the major stuff done, as you saw before, and I found two really big issues at that point. Number one, the tube socket here was bad, just really noisy, not making good contact. I tried fairly heroic measures of cleaning it, but it was to no avail. So it's got a belt in there. The other big issue in that area was that a 12AX7 sounded fine, aside from the intermittent socket. A 12DW7, however, which is the correct tube, which has one triode of a 12AX7 and one triode of a 12AU7, did not. There was almost no output. And what was happening, how I found what was happening is that we had sound with a 12AX triode. We did not have sound with a 12AU triode. And the major difference between the two, aside from the amount of gain, is the amount of current that they draw. And so knowing that, I was able to determine that, okay, it works with a 12AX, which draws less current. It fails with a 12AU, which draws more, which led me to the 15K plate resistor for that triode. And indeed, it was bad, though it measured fine when cold, as in the amp was off, as in the resistor sitting on the bench you measure. And that means that, when there was no current demand on that resistor, 15K, thank you very much. But it was not able to sustain the current draw of the 12AU. So it's got a 2-watt metal film now, and a couple of other resistors are replaced, and I reflowed a lot of the solder joints in this area, just because this board has a little bit of flex in this area. It's not going to flex really in use, but it does vibrate. So once all that was resolved, I'm able to get to the point now where I can tell that the 6C4 tube in the output of the phase of the preamp is intermittent. Not really intermittent so much as it's very microphonic, to the point where occasionally a very high-pitched whistle, almost oscillation, starts. It's so high-pitched that it's just on the edge of hearing, and it's almost more like just a pressure on the ears than an actual frequency. But it is there, and just touching the 6C4 makes that stop. So I've got another one on order. The Ampeg come in with a whole bunch of mismatched 12AX7s and generics. It now has the proper 12DW7s where necessary, only one 12AX7 in this. And we're sounding pretty good now. But aside from that 6C4 being prone to oscillation and just staticky noises, there's also a background hum that you probably can't hear in this video, but I can hear it. And it goes away if I bypass the preamp by plugging directly into the external amp input. And so all that hum goes away now. And now if I play, there's no background noise whatsoever. So the power amp is totally quiet as far as noise goes, and the tubes are well matched, and there's no hum or hiss or anything in the output. But there is a buzz, hum in the background of the preamp, and that could be caused by that 6C4. It could be caused by the floating ground that's in that section. It's a very complicated way of having the chassis connected and the audio ground flowing through. But it's also highly likely that it's due to the multi-wire connector that Ampeg used on these, because this amp sends the AC mains, 110, 120, sends these wires through the bundle of wires to the preamp, to the on-off switch, and that bundle of wires has the audio stuff run along with the AC, and it is somewhat separated, but it's still there together. And I'm just going to put the bass down for a second. It's very hard to work on these because they're so physically large and heavy and dangerous, and the wires between them are short. So I'm going to let me move the camera for this. Okay, that high pitch has started. It comes and goes based on how much pressure is on this 6C4. So I'm going to live with that while I show you this. So this is the bundle which has all the audio stuff. And this is the audio connection. I'm just trying to see if moving this around makes that hum go away. It does not, because the wires are passing through the same hole here and they're in the same plug here. So it doesn't matter what happens in between. Boy, that hurts my head. I'm going to turn that off. So I've got to get a new 6C4 and do a little more investigating of, is there a way to make the actual vintage stuff work with this? It would be better in every sense of the word to run a new jack on this chassis and on this chassis and have a separate audio connection moved away from the AC stuff. There's just not a lot of good places for that to go inside the large power chassis. It's a strange decision they made, and that buzz just kills me. Anyway, let me put this to the side while I wait for that 6C4 to arrive, and I'll get the Gemini set up. Okay, on this Gemini, and if you hear some staticky sounds in the background, that's my Wi-Fi router. I still have not been able to find a good solution for that. I need it here, but I need it to stop broadcasting into amplifiers, and this Ampeg with its more open chassis is just really susceptible to it. Won't be a problem when it's back in the cabinet and shielded, but anyway. Was sounding good, except the old roach, which is still physically in place here, though it's not connected, was quite weak, and by which I mean rather than going from nearly completely open, let's say nominally 10 megs, to the ideal of completely closed, let's say 0 ohms, it was going from about 10 meg-ish, which was good, to 256K or so. So it wasn't going completely closed, which meant that as you turn the intensity pot up, even if the tremolo was off, you got a big drop in level because that forms a voltage divider there. The resistance, whatever resistance is formed by this intensity pot as it's turned up, forms a voltage divider. And so it was losing volume when you did not use the tremolo. And when you did use the tremolo, it wasn't going from fully on to fully off. It was going from fully off to a little bit on. And that wasn't very useful. So I have Tim10. It's a neat Tim10, but it's not permanently attached yet. This replacement bug that Andy Fuchs Audio sells, and pending the owner's decision, I will install this more neatly and securely, etc., etc. That's not a big deal, but it is now working very well, and it is going from 10 meg in its open state to about 17K in its closed state, and that we don't hear. It's a textbook voltage divider, but we don't hear it. 17K as top resistor in a divider is close enough. So here's with it, the intensity is 0. So you don't hear any change in level because the change is like a fraction of a percent. Also because we don't have that voltage divider there, it's not rolling off the highs. So now when we apply tremolo to the circuit, we're applying tremolo to the full output of the circuit with the full frequency response that's desired, however you set the tone controls. And now it goes deeper as well. I can get that percussive effect if I want. Or I can go pretty subtle with it. And just as importantly, when I switch it off, the sound and level doesn't change. So, to the owner watching this, my recommendation is that I leave the old original bug circuit right here in place, but not connected to anything, with the leads taped off. And I think I just have room to put a dab of silicone on the chassis here for the new bug to be secured here. And I'll just run new wires instead of these yellow ones. That'll be neat. The green and white can stay. I left enough slack there for neat bundling there. So the new roach will be right here. The old one will still be there. If you sell this to some crazy collector who just insists on having the vintage original circuit as weak and meh as it sounds, it's there. It can be reconnected. Other than that, this amp is sounding really good. Pending the owner's decision, I'll put this back together and we'll do a real playing test of this with its cabinet and its 15-inch Alnico speaker. So, good progress on two relatively ancient Ampegs, both of which are sounding probably better than they have in many decades, and that makes me feel good.